So I read The Last One at the Wedding by Jason Rekulak, and it was entertaining and disappointing. Hello, pardon my voice, I have been sick, and I am just getting better again. Honestly, the entire holiday season has been just a chain of sicknesses, so I appreciate you guys waiting for this video. Also, the next video that we release on this channel will be me reading all of the recommendations that you mystery people recommended on my Best Mysteries of All Time video, so stay tuned for that. It'll be out within the month, I promise. Alright, so yes, I read Last One at the Wedding by Jason Rekulak. It was entertaining and disappointing.
Hey, it's me, the editor. I just wanted to let you guys know that there will be light and inconsequential spoilers for this book, mostly things that you find out very early on in the first half of this review, and in the second half we will have real spoilers. I will put a big warning before we get to the part with actual spoilers, but if you want to go into this book blind, then don't watch this video.
So before talking about The Last One at the Wedding, I want to talk about Hidden Pictures, which I read last year and loved. I am not usually into horror novels, and I'm especially not into supernatural horror. As a mystery lover, I like fair play puzzles that you can figure out using logic and reason, and It's a Ghost usually takes away a lot of the fun for me. Having said that, I enjoyed reading Hidden Pictures in spite of this, and would even recommend it as a mystery novel, even given the supernatural element. I don't really think that's a spoiler, by the way. It is, like, on the blurb of the book. Anyway, I was very excited when I heard that Mr. Rekulak was writing a second novel, and I placed a hold on it on Libby as soon as I was able. All this is to say that my disappointment was as much a product of my enjoyment of the first novel and my expectations of the second as it is of any, like, independent shortcomings of the book. So let's talk about it. The book is about protagonist Frank, a 52-year-old ex-military UPS driver who is estranged from his only child, his daughter, Margaret. The novel opens with a phone call from Margaret to Frank letting him know that she is engaged and inviting him to the wedding. As the plot unfolds, we find out that Margaret is actually engaged to her boss's son, and that her boss, Errol Gardner, is basically an in-universe Elon Musk, the head of a battery company that is producing the most capable electric vehicle that the world has ever seen. As Frank enters his daughter's world of opulence and wasteful extravagance, things seem amiss, but Frank can't tell if this is his blue-collar reaction to the vaunted lifestyle of the wealthy elites, or if there's actually something going on beneath the surface. There's also something clearly amiss with Margaret's fiancé, whose previous girlfriend has mysteriously gone missing and whose disappearance Frank winds up investigating over the course of the book. The bulk of the action takes place during the wedding weekend with Frank, Frank's sister, and his sister's foster child, a young girl named Anna. So that's our premise, and it's intriguing enough. I'd like to cover a few more positives before I get into what I believe held this book back. Jason Rekulak certainly knows how to hook a reader and move a plot along. I've been in a bit of a reading slump lately, but this one pulled me right out of it. I'm hoping that momentum sticks around, honestly. I also appreciated a lot of the tongue-in-cheek commentary about the lifestyle choices of the uber-wealthy, and there was plenty of that to go around. Mr. Rekulak's writing itself is also pretty decent. It's nothing to write home about, but it's free of anything that I found offensive. But that's about it for the positives. It was a very readable book that, as time went on, I realized I was enjoying less and less. There's an old saying that you can alter the whole course of a river by placing a few stones at, like, its genesis, and I thought about that a lot with this book. And I think that most of the issues that I have with this book do stem from a single shortcoming, and that shortcoming is the main character, Frank. In a word, Frank is just annoying. In a few more words, Frank is naive, inconsistent, and morally flexible in a way that kind of makes him hard to root for. His narrative voice was just a little too blue-collar for me, to a point where it almost read like a caricature. I will say that I listened to the audiobook for a lot of it, and that did not help. The narrator that they chose affected a very tough-to-swallow blue-collar accent that didn't really sound authentic, but even after I switched to print, the language of the book had the same effect. I appreciate a show-don't-tell approach to storytelling, but as far as Frank's character traits, first we were told, and then we were shown relentlessly at every opportunity that he is just a regular working-class man. The book tells us this every time that it can. He's also needlessly stubborn, but, like, very selectively so. He insists upon paying $8,000 to supply the alcohol for the wedding, even in the face of a billionaire covering the cost of the entire affair, while also pretty quickly backing down from a few much more serious moral issues that I'd think he'd have a lot more conviction on, but that I'm not going to get into great detail on for the sake of spoilers. It is this selective stubbornness that belies the biggest flaw in how Frank's character is written. Frank does not seem to have any actual moral convictions. Because we witness him sacrificing his scruples in certain cases, it becomes difficult to relate to him or to support him when his morality does decide to randomly kick in. With that, let's get into spoiler territory because I do have details that I want to elucidate. Counting down right now, you got 10 seconds. If you're driving, I'm sorry, you shouldn't have put this on if you were driving knowing that you would want to skip it halfway through. Has it been enough time? I think so. So the big reveal in this book, although it is hinted at countless times and couldn't be a surprise to too many readers, is that Margaret, the daughter, is actually a manipulative and possibly sociopathic person, and that she is right at the center of all the shady things that Frank perceives around this wedding. The other big reveal is that she's not actually dating Errol Gardner's son. She is dating Errol Gardner himself, even though she's still going to marry his son. The entire marriage stemmed from Margaret witnessing one of Errol's other mistresses, the woman whose disappearance Frank has been investigating throughout the book, on the night that she died, when she got into a conflict apparently with like all of Errol Gardner's family. Margaret used what she witnessed to opportunistically blackmail Errol Gardner into basically giving her half of his wealth. The deal was that she would marry his son with a prenup guaranteeing that she would leave the marriage extremely well off, and then they would divorce within a year, leaving Margaret to, I guess, continue to secretly date Errol's dad. But what's confusing to me, more than that, is that for some reason Errol doesn't really seem to hold the blackmail against her. Like, they're still together, they're still having sex, they're still saying that they're in love over the course of this entire novel. They're still working on progressing the like battery company forward together. I don't know. It just seems off to me that this super wealthy tech mogul would be so quick to allow himself to be blackmailed into losing half of his wealth and influence over his company, especially in such an elaborate way, and then wouldn't even hold a personal grudge against the person doing the blackmailing. It's also shown that they're like capable of murder over and over again throughout this book, so why wouldn't he just kill her? There are even a few hints that it wasn't even really Errol or his wife or his son that killed the woman in question, but that it was Margaret herself, although this is never illuminated in the book, it's just hinted at. But that would make even less sense, because how would she just go to someone's house and then kill someone and then blackmail them? But like none of the rest of it makes sense anyway, so maybe they did? Anyway, that's the main crux of the plot, and I've got to say, breaking it all down like that, it does seem pretty ridiculous. I want to get back to Frank though, because unlikely plot contrivances are forgivable to a degree, especially once you get into the thriller territory, which I think this book is squarely in. Unfortunately, I thought it would be another like horror come mystery book, but it really wasn't. So we learn at some point that the reason that Frank and his daughter aren't speaking is because years ago, she wanted him to lie to the cops for her after she committed an arson at her job. She like openly and clearly demanded that Frank lie to her, and Frank didn't lie to her, and then she called him and just pretended that she never asked him to lie. She was like, "Why are you lying to the police and trying to get me in trouble?" "What, Dad? I never asked you to lie to me." Like, just complete sociopathic behavior. And if it were just a relationship between two friends, I would say this is grounds to end the friendship, but it's not a relationship between two friends. It's a parent-child relationship, which means that Frank, as the parent of the obviously morally bereft daughter, has an obligation to make sure that his daughter is accountable for and learns from her mistakes in some capacity, something he's clearly failed to do for her entire life up to the impasse in question. If I had this type of interaction with one of my adult children, the relationship would not be over on their terms. My kid wouldn't be like, "Oh, you didn't lie to the cops for me, now we're not talking anymore." It would be over on mine, and mine would be, "You need to stop being a criminal and demanding that I lie for you." Frank, however, spends a few years gaslighting himself to the point where when she re-enters his life, he feels guilty for not lying to the cops and has convinced himself that he's the one who was wrong. I get what the author's trying to do here. We're supposed to see Frank as this poor single dad. He's working class, he's only got his daughter, he's poured his whole life into her. We can't blame him for overlooking some of her problematic behavior as a kid. We can't blame him for his desperation to continue a relationship with her as an adult. I understand that character, and I think there's a degree of realism here. But that character, the guy who rolls over for his daughter no matter what, and who is just desperate and grateful to have her in his life, that character, when she calls him up out of the blue and says, "Hey, I'm getting married, it's going to be this super wealthy, elite, crazy affair," would be over the moon. He would go through the motions in a heartbeat. He wouldn't be there going, "Let me peel back the layers, something's not right." Like, this naive dude who only wants his daughter to love him would be happy for her. The impulse of saying, "Something's not right about this wedding, I need to make sure that everything is above board," also should have said, "My daughter is a liar and an arsonist, I need to figure that out." It wouldn't be like, "Well, I guess I was wrong the whole time." So that's why I say that Frank has this selective sense of conviction, and it just rubs me the wrong way. A final point about Frank's character that really sealed the deal for me was the book's climax, though, where Margaret's fiance, Earl Gardner's son, kills himself. Before he does so, he leaves Frank a little present, a map with a marker of where the body is of the other mistress that Margaret saw get murdered, whoever murdered her. Before he kills himself, he accidentally gives this piece of evidence to Anna, Frank's sister's father, foster daughter, even though he meant to give it to Frank, so it takes like a few months for Frank to find it. The book's kind of wound down at this point. Margaret and Errol are just back to their regular lives, I guess. But Frank then finds this piece of evidence that disrupts, the like peace that he's found with the whole situation. And when he realizes what he has found, rather than going to the police, he brings it to his daughter, who again is still dating Errol Gardner and still working in the company, because he thinks that she'll be able to use it as leverage against him to blackmail him again, I guess? Or protect herself is what he says, but like she doesn't seem to need protection. Like he could kill her if he wanted to. It's just the most asinine thing I've ever heard. They just had this giant debacle of a wedding weekend because Margaret was trying to blackmail Errol. They were lucky to all emerge unscathed. They didn't. Errol's kid died. The dust finally settles. Frank finds this clear evidence of a murder that happened, and he gives it to his daughter, who has, at every opportunity throughout this book, shown that she is self-serving and little else. He doesn't care about getting justice or closure for the murdered woman's family. He only cares about giving his daughter protection from the people that she's clearly chosen to keep in her life over him, and from whom she doesn't seem to need protection, because if they wanted to kill her, they could have by now. So surprise, surprise, when Frank goes to meet Margaret and give her this evidence, Errol and his cronies are there to receive and destroy it. And Frank is fine with this. He's like disappointed that his daughter's not going to keep it to blackmail Errol again, but he doesn't really care. He doesn't care that justice isn't going to be served. He doesn't care about this woman who got killed like a few years back and whose family just thinks she's been missing this whole time. But then Errol tells Frank that he's going to have to murder the foster daughter because she had the evidence in her possession for a while, and Frank can't have this. And he ultimately winds up saving the day, and everyone lives happily ever after. But I found this whole turn of events flabbergasting, because why would Errol Gardner not just kill Frank? Like, Margaret doesn't care about him. Why wouldn't he kill Margaret? Why would he be so open with Frank about his desire to kill the kid? He's basically just like, well, Frank, you're family, so we trust you. We're gonna kill the kid. See you later. The book just kind of casually sidestepped us into a situation wherein killing children is now on the table, and none of the characters seem to care, except for Frank, who only cares a little bit. Like, it's like a binary switch. He only cares about that. He doesn't care about anything else. And also, like, where does this child murder come from? Like, maybe I'm naive, but I think it's a bit of a step to go from covering up a murder that took place in your house during a heated family exchange to assassinating children in cold blood to keep your secrets. Like I said, Frank's bothered by this, but even his reaction is limited to just, well, guess I should do something. Not, I can't believe my daughter is okay with this child being murdered. Wow, my daughter's a sociopath. I can't believe it. So yeah, this book was confusing. It was all over the place. Something I loved about Hidden Pictures was that there was a real emotional weight to the story and the characters and their relationships. I found the book like kind of moving, and it made me think about how much I love my kids, and maybe it was because I had just like had my first son, so I was like kind of primed for it. But in any case, I was moved by the book, and it really elevated the experience for me, and that's why I was looking forward to this book. And Rekulak tries to do something similar through Frank's relationship with Anna, the foster daughter, but it mostly just falls flat. Basically what he does is, at the beginning of the wedding weekend, Anna is portrayed as super annoying, and like after the dust kind of settles, there's like 3 or 4 pages where Frank and Anna get close. Up until that point, she is just annoying. She's not like a really good or helpful character. She puts Frank in legitimately infuriating and inconvenient situations, and then just suddenly we get a few pages, and now they're close, and it feels completely unearned. We don't really get to witness any of the development in real time, so it kind of just feels like Anna exists to provide an emotional element to the book, and to give the amoral and unscrupulous Frank a reason to finally stop going along with his sociopath daughter's plans. It could have been done a lot better, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So that's it. This was not the worst book that I've ever read. It was entertaining enough, and I'll probably be picking up Jason Rekulak's next work. They can't all be bangers. This just wasn't for me, and I think objectively, it's just a much less tightly executed novel than Hidden Pictures was. Thank you for watching. See you guys in the next one. That was good, John. Good segment.